Welcome back everyone to my kitchen. Angelo here, and I'm going to show you today how to make Portuguese sweetbread. I've had many requests for Portuguese sweetbread. Even though the recipe is a difficult one, we're going to try to make it as simple as possible. So here we go. We have all the ingredients measured out, and this is the best way to do it. Have everything ready to go, because once the process starts, it's fairly quick. And it's important to have everything moving at the same time. So here we have a dozen eggs. They're at room temperature, so leave them out for a few hours or overnight. And then we also have an additional 3 egg yolks that I'm gonna put in. Okay, and here we have 5½ cups of sugar, which we're gonna mix in with our eggs. And in a few minutes, we're gonna beat all this together till it's light and fluffy. So here we have 5½ cups of, 5½ pounds of flour. This is the best flour that I use, and I add an additional 2 cups of bread flour. It just gives a little more structure to the sweet dough. We need a large bowl. This is an 18-quart bowl. And we have 5 cups of milk that we are gonna scald. So it's gonna be nice and hot when we add it to our mixture. We have 3 bars of butter. And we have ½ cup of Crisco or vegetable shortening, whichever you prefer. We're gonna use 3 packets of yeast. I have the bulk yeast here, but each one of these spoons is a packet. So we will do it with our spoon. Here we have a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of lemon extract, and I have 1 whole large lemon of zested peel here. I did it ahead of time. So first we're gonna create our sponge, which is the yeast mixture that's gonna get everything moving and growing for us. So I have in here, I have a 1/4 cup of flour. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then I'm gonna add ½ cup of water. The water you want nice and warm, not hot, just nice and warm. And we're gonna mix that together with the flour and the sugar and our 3 tablespoons of yeast. And you're just gonna beat that nicely until everything dissolves. And then you're gonna cover this with plastic wrap. And we're gonna wait that until that's gonna probably almost fill this halfway. So we're gonna just keep that in a nice warm spot, and we're gonna start putting everything else together. So here we have our eggs and sugar that we started. We're just gonna put that on low. And while that's blending, we're gonna heat up our butter mixture. We're gonna add our salt to it. We're gonna add our lemon extract to it. And we're gonna add our lemon zest. And then we're gonna take that over to the stove with our 5 cups of milk. Okay, so here we have our eggs and our sugar beaten together. This took a little over 5 minutes. It's nice and thick and creamy, as you can see. So we'll just hold that there. Our butter has been melted. It's still pretty warm, and the milk is scalding. You don't want this to boil, just almost to a boil or almost to a simmer. and that's ready to go. And as you can see, our sponge here has more than doubled. That's ready for us to go. You can see that the yeast was nice and strong. And here in our bowl, we're gonna place our 5 Roses flour. And this is an all-purpose enriched bleach flour. It's a little more refined than an all-purpose flour. And here we have the 2 cups of our bread flour. So the reason why I like to put bread flour in is it has more protein and helps build the gluten a little bit better. So you also, if you have, use a bowl scraper. It's just easier to get everything down and off the sides of the bowl. So here, I'm going to use a wooden spoon. I'm just going to create a little well here in the flour. And we're going to start by placing our eggs in the flour. So just go ahead and put the whole mixture in there. So this is a real moist, almost batter consistency in the beginning. Then as the gluten builds up, it gets a little thicker. So I'm going to start by just quickly mixing up the flour and the egg product here a little bit. And then I'm slowly going to add half of the butter mixture. We're going to save the other half. I put it in a little bit later in the process. And then we're going to slowly add the milk in here. Now I'm slowly adding the milk so that we don't cook the eggs. This kind of tempers the eggs a little bit. And then once you have a little bit of the milk in there, you can go ahead and just place the whole thing. As you can see, this is still very, very hot, and that's exactly what we want. And we're just going to mix that up a little bit. Incorporate that in there really well. And then I'm going to add the yeast mixture to it. So I got that milk pretty much incorporated in there. And we're going to add all this yeast, our sponge. And we're just going to now, all we're going to do here is we're going to mix this very well till all this flour isn't visible any longer. So it's important here to just keep mixing till all that flour is gone, especially in the bottom and the sides of the dough. And then we're just going to let it sit for about 10-15 minutes. Let it relax a little bit. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do a very short knead to this and add the remaining of the butter to it. So as you can see, it's a real sticky dough. So again, once there's no more flour at the bottom, as you can see, I have no more flour here. I'm just going to scrape this down. And again, if you don't have a bowl scraper, you can use a spatula or your hands. Just make sure your hands are nice and greasy so it doesn't stick. So I'm just going to scrape the bowl down here. Kind of pull the dough in a little bit. And you'll see at this point your dough is nice and warm. And that's it. Just going to cover it with plastic wrap. And we'll come back in 10 minutes and we'll give this a short knead. So here we are. It's been about 10 minutes. But before we knead the dough real quick, I had turned on my oven just to get it warm inside a little bit. And I lowered the grates so that my bowl fits in the oven. So hopefully you have your dough in a bowl that will fit inside the oven. This just speeds up the process, keeps it nice and warm. I also have a pot of boiling water. We're gonna put a cup with some steaming hot water in there just to give a little bit of moisture. It just moves the process along a little bit better. So as you can see, the dough's rested a little bit. It's got a little bit more body now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just pull it in again with my scraper. Again, you can use your hands or a spatula to do this. Just make sure it's well greased. And then I'm gonna add the remaining butter right on top of the whole mound or the whole bunch of dough here. And I'm gonna pour the rest of the butter in. And then with my scraper, I'm just gonna continue to try to get all that butter underneath my dough here. So the dough's still warm, and that's exactly how we like to keep it. Once it gets cold, it just takes a little longer for it to rise. It's important to try to keep it continuously warm, and that's why that hot milk goes in there and the hot butter. So here I have my dough and I have the butter, as you can see. I scraped it all the way down, so now I'm just gonna knead it a little bit till all this butter's gone. And what I do is I just pull it from side to side, continuous crisscross motion, couple of kneads. I have plenty of butter on my hands, so nothing's sticking. And you just keep doing all four sides till most of this butter is incorporated. Now I'm just basically just turning all the dough around so it's nice and smooth. Make sure it's still a little greasy from the butter. And as you can see, there's no dough on the sides here. If there was, I'd scrape it down. And now we're just going to cover it again with plastic wrap. Stick it into our warm oven. Make sure the oven is just warm, about 85, 90 degrees. And that's it. So we just cover this in plastic wrap. Make sure it's nice and tight. And for our first rise, we're wanting this dough to come all the way to the rim of this, which is just about double in size. So we're gonna go into our warm oven. It's warm. Make sure it's not hot. It's just warm, about 85, 90 degrees. And you're gonna place the whole bowl in there. And then I'm gonna take some boiling water and just put it in a cup or a mixing bowl or a glass bowl. Just something that you can handle without getting burnt. And I'm just gonna place that in there with it, with the bowl, and it's just gonna create, as you can see, it's gonna create some steam and some warmth in the oven. And that's it. And that should be ready in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So here we go. It's been about 2.5 hours and our dough is ready. So here's that hot cup of water. I've been changing it out about every half hour just to keep it warm in the oven. And as you can see, we've doubled our dough. And at this point, I'm also going to take the rack and I'm going to put it so I can fit 2 layers of pans in the oven when we go in for our second proof. So as you can see, it's nicely risen. So what I've done here is I've beaten 2 whole eggs so that we could egg wash our dough. And I have a little bowl with some oil in it, just to grease my hands so that the dough doesn't stick. And just gonna punch this down. And as you can see, it's a nice cohesive dough. So I have, for this batch, the 5.5 pounds of flour, I have 6 greased pans. Just use cooking spray. And we're gonna put equal amounts into each one. You want it at least halfway up the pan. And I'm just rolling it into the bottom of the dough so we have a nice round dough ball. And as you can see, that's about half the pan. So it takes a little time to get used to how to measure it exactly. But if it's not as much, you can take a little bit of dough and just stick it in the bottom and just continue on. And again, you just want to keep tucking it under so it's nice and smooth. And we are going to have a little bit extra dough. You can either make a smaller loaf or you can make little buns, which I think I will make little buns. So I have a warm pan with some silt pad on it. And this, you can make them just about as big as you want. I'm gonna make 4. Try to get the same balls the same size. And you could certainly weigh these out as well. I just go by the feel and the look. And then you're just basically doing the same thing, just pinching it down at the bottom and creating these nice little buns. So same procedure, just a little smaller. I like to pinch them at the bottom. You could certainly do this on the counter as well. And if you're a little bit more proficient, you could certainly just roll it on the counter as well. So that's it. So we are now going to stick these back in the warm oven, and at this time, if the oven had cooled down, you can heat it up for a few more seconds. Again, not too hot, just enough to stay warm and help the rising process. So I usually fit 3 on each shelf, 2 in the back and 1 in the front. And again, we can put some boiling water in there. So I'll empty out the old one. Put the pan in there. And we'll give that a second rise. About an hour, hour and a half it will take. And we want that doubled in size. And we want it to come over the lip of the pan a little bit. Okay, we'll see you in a little while. So here we go. It's been about an hour and a half and our bread is ready. So as you can see, it's just over the top. Now we're going to take these out and we're going to preheat the oven to 325 degrees. And we're just going to score the top of these. You need a real sharp knife. I have a professional lame here with a razor. But if you have a real sharp knife, it should work just as well. So I just like to make a cross in the top. That allows the sweetbread to grow while it's baking. There'll be an initial burst when it gets into the oven. And some people do this with scissors as well. And some people don't even put the cross in it. Totally up to you. Now we're gonna take our 2 eggs beaten, and we're just gonna egg wash the whole thing. And then we're gonna bake these, like I said, in a preheated 325-degree oven. We're gonna cook these for about 45 minutes, checking periodically with a bamboo skewer to check the middle. And just like a cake, if it comes out a little wet, you still have to cook it a little bit more. It should be, the bamboo skewer should come out nice and dry. And you'll also see you'll get a nice brown coloring on this as well. And here you have it. We're ready to go into the oven. I'm fortunate to have 2 ovens, so I do have one that's already hot. And here's the bamboo skewer that I used to check. And that's it, in the oven, about 45 minutes. So here we go, they've come out of the oven. I've let them cool down and taken them out of the pans. And I'm gonna slice one for you to see what the inside looks like. And there we have it, our sweet bread, light, airy, nice and sweet, ready for you to enjoy.